I really believe in this dude, man. I mean, like I really, really believe in this cat. I totally believe in you, brother. I really, really believe in you. I believe in you so much that I'm going to tell you. I believe in you so much that I'm going to endorse you. I'm going to empower you. I believe in you so much I'm going to talk about you. I believe in you so much that I'm going to pray for you. I believe in you so much I'm going to tell many others about you. I believe in you so much that I will literally tell people what they're saying is not true and show them the truth. I believe in you. You know, got my watch on here and I don't like the noise it's making. I believe in you. I mean, it's so like this show this morning is, and we're picking up from last week, and I can't but help but think about my father, and I know this is a saga that's probably going to run for a while, and it's been it's been heavy on my soul for 5 years now. As a matter of fact, I would tell you this that I remember as a small boy, I don't know if I was praying. I remember talking to somebody. I remember talking to myself. I remember talking to the clouds. And I'm like, gosh, man, I don't know what I'm going to do when my dad dies someday. So it was like a big fear from the time I was probably 10 years old or whatever I can remember, thinking about death and life. And, I remember, and even in high school, like practicing in my mind into myself. I didn't share this with anybody, but I practiced like, what was I going to say at my dad's funeral? What was I going to say? And then you start to think about, well, what's going to happen when yourself dies or you left. What are people going to say at your funeral? I mean, that's the thing about death. It's just this idea of moving on, and Christians have a hope in death. And when other Christians see other Christians dying, they have a way of rejoicing. They have a way of like, oh man, it's in a better place. So this whole show is about investing in others, but I mean, it's starting off in a bit of an emotional pitch for me because I think about these things often. And I was talking to Chad and I was talking to my wife. And by the way, good morning. Honey, you're awesome, on the way out the door. She's doing her exercises, She interrupted me a couple times during my study. She said, "What's going on?" I said, "Well, I'm trying to get ready for my show, and I keep getting interrupted." She kind of chuckled and kept doing what she's doing. And of course, at the last minute, as I'm getting ready to leave, I kind of get to where I'm going to go with things, and I'm in a better mood. And as I was leaving, I grabbed my bag. And I said, "I love you, honey." I gave her a kiss, and as I was going out, she said, "You're really doing really good with all this." I don't know why it hit me. Like, I got this whole show in my head, and then my wife is telling me I'm doing really good. I'm thinking about investing in other people, invest to pass the test. I have scripture for you from Acts we're going to go over, but I just really want to bring everyone together here with some things that are going on in all of our minds. I remember vividly more than one occasion preparing a message for when my father dies, and he's not dead yet, but he has moved on to a place where things are really a lot simpler for him in some ways, and they're not in other ways. He's got dementia, and we've talked about that, and he's in a home now, and we've moved his wife into a place where she's more comfortable. And this was the first morning that we had woke up in 6 years that when we woke up, we weren't worried about if my dad was straying somewhere or his wife was getting injured or snapping a bone or she was in a coma. I mean, it just went through things and things and things. I mean, like this caretaking thing has really caused us to reflect. And so as I was looking down from our cabin, which is over the lake, we have a beautiful place here where we've been caretaking, and Tracy and I bought all the property around it to make the passage of time easier for everybody in this regards. And it was the first time I looked down at their house that we had purchased and that we were caring for them in with helpers, and there was no one in the house. Like, it was the first time. And we've been cleaning it and moving people and all this, but it was really strange. It was a relief in a lot of ways, and everybody's in a good place right now. But this whole the swirls of like the pain, the scares, the frightenedness, this idea of them hurting, not getting hurt, making the right decisions, all this is just kind of gurgled up to the top, and finally they've landed in two separate homes where they're being cared for. And Tracy and I are sitting here, and I'm just thinking, man, you know, it's like he's gone, and I'm thinking about what I would say. I'm thinking about these things, and as I was preparing the message when I was 10, and as I was preparing the message when I was maybe 14, and as I was preparing the message when maybe I was 18, maybe, and then I was 25, and then maybe I was 35. And as I started to prepare the message at the age of 50, it brought me to the age of 58. And I'm thinking about the message again. But anytime I had put that message together, I could never get the image of him or even my wife, who I met at the age of 16, out of my head. Why is my father and my wife of some 40 years etched in this mind of finality for my father? Why? Why is it that at the same time I'm looking at his empty house and I'm saying goodbye to her, she says, "You're doing really good." Man, that makes me feel great. But what is it that's in common between this monumental man in my life and this monumental wife, partner, person, soulmate in my life? What is it that these two have in common? What is it that goes on in my life that makes me think about praying for him at the age of 10 or 12 and makes me pray for my wife on everyday occasion? And what do these two people have done in my life that have created this impact, this impasse, this impracticality of consciousness, because I can't get either of them out of my mind in anything that I do and almost anything I go forward in life? Why is it that this type of thing happens to me like this? And this show, obviously, I tell stories about me and my wife and my life and my time and everything we're doing, but this show is about you. And I want you to understand, when I think about these things, I think, what can help these people? What has God delivered to me through all these things that we talk about right now? And what is he asking me to say today when he brings me Acts 9:27? And then he cross-references it with Acts 4:12. I don't think it's any accident by any stretch of the imagination at all. I just don't. I can't find many accidents in the Bible. I've looked. There's none. Did you know that there are 10,000 stars for every grain of sand on earth? Did you know that? I didn't know that. And I can't prove it. I mean, there's lots of thing on the internet. But I choose to believe it. Did you know that there are more people alive on earth right now than had ever died since the creation of man? I can't prove it, but I choose to believe it. Today, we're going to break down how to invest in people. We're going to break down how Barnabas did it. We're going to break down a lot of things. And they have a lot to do with what my father and my wife have done for me.
Preview.
Todd is not only a remarkable, successful 30-year titan in business with having multiple businesses that generate multiplied millions of dollars.
And if that plan happens to be to build $1 million company, which I can help you do.
But he's humble. He's a man of God. He's a family man.
The world's news organizations are built on everything but positivity. He is an influential entrepreneur and business figure for over 30 years. I've got to forecast. I've got to pronounce. I've got to project. I've got to share with you my ideas, my vision, my goals for not only myself, but for you.
That's why he's came up with his incredible concept of taking and creating a platform for people that are wired differently.
And you got to understand that your habits of your person and your habits of your business and your habits of your spirituality have to lead to the North Star of who you are. We need to figure out who we want to be in life.
All right. So let's just start with Acts 9:27. Let me just read it to you. But Barnabas took him and brought him to the apostles. He told them how Saul, which is now Paul, on his journey had seen the Lord and that the Lord had spoke to him, and how in Damascus he had preached fearlessly in the name of Jesus. And so this is what really brought us to the table last Thursday. This is the verse in Acts. You know, we're midway through Acts, which Acts 9, which is titled Saul's conversion. And we were talking about this character called Barnabas. And Barnabas is known in Hebrew as the encourager. And so really what I want to talk to you about is Barnabas, but we have to understand Paul. And last week I explained Paul and the fact that he converted. And we're going to touch base on that a little bit because I want you to understand my Barnabas in many ways has been several people in my life. I can think of mostly coaches. But the challenge for you is to believe in somebody, to encourage somebody. The challenge here is for you to invest, pass the test, to do and pass on what you have known, what you have learned, what you have lost, what you have broken, what you have gained. Now, I think I've been doing a pretty good job of that throughout my life, but it wasn't really purposeful until later years in my life because we're in a rush as we're younger. We're trying to get ours, we're trying to get ours. We've got to go out and, we got to I remember I just had to make $100,000 a year, and I wasn't going to stop until I was making $100,000 a year. And I thought, well, I hit $100,000 a year. My dad, I remember him coming up to me, he said, "You're making $100,000 a year now?" I go, "Yeah." I mean, he gave me, that's one of the few times I remember him really even hugging me, and he started telling his friends. I'm like, wow, he does care, right? Like, we just run so hard, and we just go so hard, and we're really focused. And I'm not saying it's wrong, because I did it and I'm still doing it. There's no question that I'm running hard right now. Only way I guess I know how to run. That's what my dad did. But what he also did was pour into other people. He was a coach. He's a football coach. I need you to think about that for a second. An image of a coach, someone in your life that poured into you. Now, everybody doesn't have the luxury of having a mentor, a coach, or even a father figure. But most of us have had somebody at some point do something for us, and it's still in our minds, right? And I think that's what really separates us from evildoers. Is that we know those experiences, and then at some point we decide that we want to do that too. And so at the beginning of the show, I talked briefly about how I've been concerned about what I would say at my father's funeral. And those days are closer than they are farther away. I have lost a version of my father now that he has Alzheimer's. And so part of that mourning process has taken effect and makes you reflect. And then when I start to do a show like this about investing in other people, I can only not but think of him. And I think of my wife at the same time, because those two were yoked. My father loved me so much. I remember one quick story I'll give you, and it was a changing time in my life. I was probably 19 or 20 years old, and I was in college. We were at Manchester University. I love that school. It brought me my wife. It brought me so many things. But her parents had moved to Florida, and when they were moving to Florida, they just abruptly picked up, and her father got a job there, and they were gone. And they phoned us at the college, or phoned Tracy at the college, and said, "Listen, we're no longer residents in Indiana, and the grants that you were getting to go to Manchester University, you can't have them anymore, and we don't have the funds to pay for your schooling, but we'd be all too glad to have you come to Florida with us, where schooling is free." Now, I got to tell you, Tracy's father and I are best friends now, and I love him so dearly. He's taught me so many things. But back then, we weren't best friends. Maybe said 5 words to the man. I mean, I knew he wasn't on the top 5 men that he wanted his daughter to marry. So I had a little thing in me that was like, man, I can't believe he's taken her. I couldn't, isn't this just perfect, right? Move to Florida, take your daughter. But little did I know that that would add to the story, that would add to the flavor, that would add to the investment story, that would add to this actually very moment right now. It's funny how God works, right? But Barnabas took him and brought him to the apostles. Little did I know that when I decided what I had to do was that I just wasn't ready for her to leave. I don't even know if we'd said we loved each other. I'm sure we said, man, I love you, but we weren't engaged. We were like 19, 20 years old. And it was just like a wrong time for me to have to say, oh, I want to marry you. I'm like playing football at a college university. And it was just bizarre. But I'm like, I had to do something because I knew if she went to Florida, man, all bets were off. I'm like, I would go crazy about what's going on there. And I don't know, I can't even be accountable for my own self. She would never put up with it's just, I have to make a decision. And I could only go to only one person could I go talk to about a decision I had to make that was going to change the course of not only my life, but so many lives as we sit here right now at the age of 58 years old, was I had to go to my father. I jumped in my Dodge Omni and I drove an hour and 20 minutes to Angol, Indiana from Manchester. And there he was. And I said, Dad, what you doing? He said, hey, son, I didn't know you were coming here. We didn't have cell phones back then. I said, Dad, I got to talk to you. What's up, son? Well, Tracy's out of money and she's going to have to move to Florida. And we just kind of stared at each other and we knew what that would mean. He says, well, what do you want to do, son? I said, I need to talk to you. You are probably the answer to anything I have right now, Dad. I want to borrow $2,000. $2,000. I can keep her one more year and we can figure out if we're going to live the rest of our lives together. But I can't let her go. He looked at me and he said, Butch, do you love her? And I said, Dad, I love her as much as I've ever loved any woman, any girl, any person. I do. He said, follow me. And we left this cottage that we had on the lake. And we walked across the back concrete entryway. It was an old cottage. And we walked up these stairs, probably 10 stairs to get up to a parking platform where he had parked his red Buick Riviera. And I remember he was just so cool because he swagged up there, Opened the door. He pushed the button and the trunk went. It was technology back then. It was great, right? So we walked around to the back of that red Buick and the trunk was empty. Like there was nothing in it. There was just a big carpet or something there. And I remember saying, what's up with this? And he said, hold on. And he pulled the carpet away. And as he pulled the carpet away, it was layered with probably 30 Tom's Donuts bags, perfectly stacked, flat laying on the ground. And I'm like, Dad, that's a lot of donut bags. He said, hang on. And he pulled one donut bag out and he opened it. It was perfectly sealed. He opened the crease of it and he pulled out two $1,000 perfectly wrapped bundles of cash. And my eyes lit up and I'm like, wow. And he grabbed them. And I just remember him just kind of tossing them to me and saying, go get her, Butch. Go get her, Butch. You see, I can't separate those two when it comes to investment in people. I can't separate those two in my life, my father and my wife. I can't separate the two most influential people that have ever blessed me from an investment in belief, nurturing, business, love, cash. But Barnabas took him and brought him to the apostles. The other verse I have for you is Acts 4:12. Salvation is found in no other else, for those that are named and under heaven given to mankind, by which we must be saved. Basically, that is saying there's only one way to heaven, that's through Christ. And Barnabas is saying he took Paul to the apostles to invest in him. All this to say this morning is we are born to invest in others. And I wanted to give you a meaningful story about the importance of investing to others. I wanted to give you something emotionally gripping, something strife to the point, something that would literally cut at your soul. And I didn't even prepare that. But it's true. So let me give you the three things that my father has done for me and the three things that Tracy has done for me when it comes to investing. And what Barnabas did, but Barnabas took him and brought him to the apostles. Barnabas brought Paul, who was Saul. Saul was a murderer of Christians, and he saw Jesus Christ, became an apostle. Barnabas saw this thing happening, and Paul went to Damascus. Damascus was a Jewish-led, Roman-controlled city, a beautiful city, and they were worried about Christians, and they were worried about mad Romans, and they were worried about Paul killing everybody that was a Christian. I mean, and all of a sudden, Paul, who was killing Christians, Saul, who was killing Christians, becomes Paul, who wasn't killing Christians, and he started preaching the word to the very people that he was killing, right, and trying to get the people that were telling him to kill people to not kill people anymore. He was really a misunderstood dude. Think about the pressure he was in walking through the streets. He could have been killed by either side if you think about it. But Paul pressed on. He had to run from certain towns. Even the apostles were scared of him, but not until one person, Barnabas, literally brought him to the apostles and says, boys, he's one of us. And so Barnabas did these three things. One, he believed in Paul. He saw his message. He saw Paul do the works. He went to see Paul. He saw Paul, and he saw through Paul. He believed in Paul. When you want to invest in somebody, you have to truly believe in them. Tracy believes in me. My father believes in me. Barnabas believed in Paul. Number one, you have to believe in that person. That's the beginning. Number two, you need to endorse them. You need to give to them. You need to endorse. You need to talk about them. You need to literally share about them. You need to lift them up in personality. You have to lift them up. You have to put your arm around them. You have to endorse them. You have to go out and write a newspaper article about them. You have to get on the Facebook and talk about them. You have to write a book about them. You have to do something about them. You can't just say this or that in your head. You have to go out and endorse them. You have to the believing. Thank you, Dad, my father, for believing in me. Thank you, Tracy, for believing in me. Thank you for endorsing me. Thank you so much, Dad and Tracy, for endorsing me, right? And getting out in front and sticking up for me and rumors and doing these things and that thing and setting the world straight on things that weren't just accurate and just being there for me, right? Thank you for believing and thank you for endorsing me. And last but not least, thank you for empowering. You empowered me. Go get her, Butch. You're really handling things really well today, Todd, with everything that you have going on. Thank you for empowering me. Who are we believing in? Who are we endorsing? And who are we empowering? And who in your life are you doing that for? Believe, endorse, empower. We're called to these three things. Did you realize that God's word is true in all forms? Did you realize that what I'm sharing with you about Paul and these things, they're true and they're in the Bible? Did you realize that God is so miraculous that there are literally 10,000 stars to every 1 grain of sand? As hard as that is to fathom, it's that important that we press forward and invest in other people.
Todd is not only a remarkable, successful 30-year titan in business with having multiple businesses that generate multiplied millions of dollars.
And if that plan happens to be to build $1 million company, which I can help you do,
But he's humble. He's a man of God. He's a family man.
The world's news organizations are built on everything but positivity. He is an influential entrepreneur and business speaker for over 30 years. I've got to forecast. I've got to pronounce. I've got to project. I've got to share with you my ideas, my vision, my goals for not only myself, but for you.
That's why he's came up with his incredible concept of taking and creating a platform for people that are wired differently.
And you got to understand that your habits of your person and your habits of your business and your habits of your spirituality have to lead to the North Star of who you are. We need to figure out who we want to be in life.
All right, everybody, have a great day. What a great show. I'm going to take you out. I got to tell you, tomorrow's going to be phenomenal. We're going to follow up on this with Barnabas. We're going to even take some more things out there. But God bless you for all you that tuned in today. Had lots of people. Get to wireddifferently.com. That's wireddifferently.com. And I want you to buy some T-shirts. I want you to endorse and support and invest into this mindset, mission, movement, and ministry, wireddifferently.com, because my job is to grow you personally, spiritually, and profitably. Let's have a great day, everybody. Thanks for just being a part of my life.